was 23 and living in Spokane, Washington when this happened. I worked the early shift at a bakery, which meant I was usually up before most people had gone to bed. That week, I was staying at my manager's house while she and her husband were in Idaho for a funeral. They had 2 indoor cats, too many plants, and a small house at the end of a quiet street. The first weird thing was the porch light. It clicked off at 10:14 p.m. I know the exact time because I was sitting at the kitchen table eating cereal for dinner and looking at my phone. The house had one of those motion lights over the front steps, but this was the regular porch light, the one controlled by the switch near the door. I had turned it on when I came back from work. I remembered doing it because my hands were full of cat food and groceries. When it went dark, the front window changed from yellow to black, and suddenly I could see my own reflection in the glass. I got up, checked the switch, and it was down. At first I thought maybe I had bumped it without thinking. I was exhausted. I had been opening the bakery at 4 a.m. for 6 days straight because 2 people had quit. I was the kind of tired where you put your keys in the fridge and don't notice for an hour. So I turned the light back on and locked the door again, even though it was already locked. The cats were in the living room staring down the hallway behind me. That bothered me more than the light. My manager's house wasn't creepy. It was small and clean and smelled like lemon cleaner and cat litter. The living room opened into the kitchen, with a hallway that led to 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. There was a sliding glass door in the dining room that went out to a fenced backyard. The back fence had a gate to the alley, but my manager had told me it stuck and almost never opened. I walked through the house anyway. Bathroom empty. Guest room empty. Main bedroom empty. Closets normal. I looked under the beds because I felt stupid and wanted to prove to myself there was nothing to look for. Nothing. I went back to the kitchen, washed my bowl, and tried to act normal. Around 10:40, I heard a soft scrape at the front of the house. Not a knock. More like someone dragging the edge of a shoe on the porch. I froze with my hands still under the faucet. The house went quiet except for water running into the sink. Then the scrape came again, slow and light. I turned the water off. The front door had a small frosted window at the top, the kind that blurs everything. I stood in the kitchen and looked across the living room. I could see the porch light shining through the little window. There was a dark shape beyond it, but because of the glass, it could have been anything. A person, a package, a branch moving. I didn't go closer. Then a man's voice said, "Megan?" My manager's name was Megan. He didn't shout. He said it like he was trying not to wake someone. I didn't answer. He waited a few seconds and said, "Megan, you home?" I was already holding my phone by then. My first thought was that it might be a neighbor or one of her friends who didn't know she was gone. That was the believable answer. I didn't want to be rude in someone else's house. I also didn't want to open the door at almost 11 at night. So I called out, "She's not here." Silence. Then the man said, "Who are you?" That changed the feeling in the room. I said, "I'm watching the house." He didn't respond right away. I heard a small shift on the porch, like he moved closer. Then he said, "Did she leave you the garage remote?" I didn't answer that. The garage wasn't attached to the house. It was a separate one-car garage behind the fence, with a narrow driveway that ran along the side. Megan had told me not to use it. She said it was full of storage boxes and her husband's old tools. The man said, "Hello." I backed up toward the kitchen. He knocked then. 3 quiet taps. Not hard. Not angry. Almost polite. I said, "You need to leave." He said, "I'm just picking something up." I said, "She didn't tell me about anyone coming by." He gave this little laugh through the door. "She forgets. You can call her." I almost did. That was the part one still hate thinking about. I almost took my attention off him and started looking through my messages for Megan's number. I wanted the situation to be normal. I wanted him to be an annoying neighbor asking for a borrowed ladder or something. I was overworked and alone and staying in a house that wasn't mine, and I kept feeling like I was making the rules too strict. Then he said, "Just open it for a second." That was too familiar, too casual. I didn't speak again. I walked backward into the kitchen and texted Megan. "A man is at your front door asking for you and asking about the garage. Do you know him?" The typing bubbles appeared almost right away, then stopped. I watched the hallway, the front door, the sliding door, everything at once. Megan finally replied, "Do not open anything. We don't know anyone coming over. Then another message came. Is the porch light on? That question made me feel cold. Before I could type back, the man at the front door said, louder this time, "Hey, I know you're in there." He tapped again. Once. Then I heard footsteps moving off the porch. I ran to the front window and stood to the side of it, not in front. Through the edge of the curtain, I saw him walk down the steps. He wore a dark hoodie and jeans. He wasn't big. He was average height, maybe thin. He didn't look around like someone embarrassed or lost. He walked down the path, stopped near the sidewalk, and looked back at the house. Then he looked up at the porch light. He stood there for maybe 10 seconds. Then he turned and walked toward the side driveway. That was when I realized I hadn't checked the side door. The house had a little mudroom door off the kitchen that opened to the driveway. I had used it earlier to take trash out. I remembered locking it, but I couldn't remember checking the deadbolt. I went there as quietly as I could. The deadbolt was turned halfway. Not unlocked, not locked. Halfway, like someone had tried it and it hadn't caught right. I pushed it into place and held my palm against the door. A second later, the knob moved. Not a hard turn. Not a jiggle. Just one slow turn to the left, like someone testing whether it would open. I stopped breathing. The knob stayed twisted for a second. Then it slowly turned back. I stepped away and almost tripped over one of the cats. I called 911 from the kitchen, whispering at first, then louder because the dispatcher kept asking me to repeat the address. I didn't know the house number by memory. I had to look at a piece of mail on the counter. While I was doing that, the dispatcher asked if the person was still outside. I said, yes. He's trying doors. She asked if I was in a safe room. I said no. She told me to get away from exterior doors and windows if I could. I went into the guest bedroom because it was the only room with a lock, but the lock was one of those cheap push-button ones. The window faced the backyard. I shut the door, locked it, and sat on the floor between the bed and the wall. The dispatcher stayed on the line. For a while I heard nothing. Then the sliding glass door rattled. It was far enough away that it sounded dull, like someone shaking dishes in another room. I could picture it too clearly. His hand on the handle. His face near the glass. The cat's running away. The dispatcher asked what I heard. I whispered, "He's at the back door." She told me officers were on the way. But the sliding door didn't open. Instead, I heard him moving around outside, along the back of the house. There was a crunch of gravel, then the soft thud of the trash cans near the fence. Then something worse. A phone started ringing. It was inside the house. Not my phone. Mine was in my hand. It rang from the kitchen or living room. A cheap, bright ringtone I had never heard before. I froze so hard my legs hurt. The dispatcher said, "What was that?" I said, "There's another phone in the house." It rang 4 times and stopped. A few seconds later, I got another text from Megan. "Please tell me you're inside with the doors locked. Call police." I wrote back with one hand, "I am on with 911. There is a phone ringing in the house." Her reply came fast. "What phone?" The ringing started again. This time I could tell where it was coming from. Under the couch in the living room. The sound was muffled, but close enough that I could hear the vibration against the floor. The dispatcher told me not to go near it. Then the man outside called out from the backyard, "You found it yet?" His voice was calm. He knew I could hear him. He wasn't asking Megan. He wasn't pretending anymore. I looked at the guest room window. It had a screen and opened into the backyard, which meant it was the worst possible way out. But the window was old, and the latch didn't sit right. I saw that now. It was closed, but not fully lined up. I stood, pushed a dresser in front of the bedroom door as quietly as I could, and looked through the curtain. I saw the top of his hood near the sliding glass door. He was standing with his back to me, facing into the house. Then he lifted his hand and waved at the glass like he was waving at someone inside. I knew he couldn't see me in the bedroom. He was waving toward the living room, toward the phone. I heard the sliding door rattle again. Then something cracked. Not glass breaking, more like plastic snapping. Later I learned it was the cheap security bar in the track. He had shoved the door hard enough to bend it out. The dispatcher was telling me to stay hidden, but the sound made me move without thinking. I climbed onto the bed and tried the window. It stuck. He pushed Hata. The frame gave a loud squeak. The man outside stopped moving. I crouched below the window. For several seconds, there was no sound at all. Then he walked away from the sliding door and toward the guest room window. I could hear his shoes in the wet grass. There was no time to get out that way. I backed away from the window and looked at the bedroom door. The dresser was there, but it was light, one of those cheap flat-pack things. If he got inside the house, it wouldn't stop him for long. The dispatcher asked if there was another exit. I remembered the bathroom. The guest room connected to the hallway, and the bathroom across the hall had a small window above the toilet. It opened to the side of the house, not the backyard. I had checked it earlier, but I hadn't thought of it as an exit because it was high and narrow. Then I heard the sliding door open. It didn't crash. It made a smooth rolling sound. The cats scattered through the house. Their claws hit the floor like rain. The man stepped inside. I could hear him breathing now because the house was so quiet. He didn't yell. He didn't run. He said, "Come on. I just need my phone." The phone under the couch rang again. He had used it like bait, or he had lost it earlier. I still don't know which is worse. He walked into the living room. I heard fabric move, then the couch shift as he reached underneath it. The ringtone cut off. Then he said very softly, "Where'd you go?" I opened the bedroom door as quietly as I could. The dresser scraped despite me lifting it, but only a little. I slipped into the hallway and crossed into the bathroom. The bathroom window was painted shut. I put the phone on the sink with the dispatcher still on speaker and climbed onto the toilet. I dug my fingers under the window frame and pulled. Nothing. I pulled again. Paint cracked. My fingers slipped and hit the wood. From the hallway, the man said, "I can hear you." I grabbed the ceramic toothbrush holder from the sink and hit the window latch. It took 3 hits before the old paint split. The window opened maybe 8 inches, then 12. The screen was on the outside. I pushed it, and it popped out into the dirt. The bathroom doorknob turned. I had not locked it. I threw my shoulder into the door and twisted the lock just as the door pushed inward. The lock caught, but the door flexed. He didn't slam it. He pressed against it steadily. I squeezed through the bathroom window head first. I scraped my ribs on the frame and dropped into the narrow strip between the house and the fence. My phone was still on the sink. I left it there. The ground was muddy and cold through my socks. I ran crouched along the side of the house toward the front yard. Behind me, the bathroom door cracked open. He had forced the little lock. I didn't look back. I came around the front of the house and saw the street empty. No police lights yet. The houses were dark except one across the street, where a blue TV glow flickered behind curtains. I ran to that house and pounded on the door with both hands. An older man opened it holding a baseball bat. I must have looked insane, barefoot in pajama pants and a bakery hoodie, crying without realizing it. I said, "He's in the house. Please." The man didn't ask questions. He pulled me inside, locked the door, and shouted to someone in the back room to call 911. His wife came out with a phone already in her hand. From their front window, we watched the house. The man in the hoodie came out through the front door less than a minute later. He moved quickly, but not like he was panicking. He pulled the hood lower and walked down the street, away from the direction of the main road. The neighbor opened his door and yelled, "Hey!" The man started running. He cut between 2 houses and disappeared. The police arrived about 4 minutes after that. I know because it felt like 40. They searched Megan's house first. No one was inside. The sliding door lock was damaged. The bathroom door lock was broken. Muddy shoe prints ran from the backyard into the living room and stopped near the couch. They found the phone under the couch because he had missed it. Or maybe he dropped it again. It was an old phone with no service plan, but it still had Wi-Fi capability. There were no contacts saved. The police said it looked wiped. They also found a small piece of black tape stuck to the front window, outside near the porch light. It had been placed over part of the glass, like someone had marked a viewing angle. Megan and her husband drove back the next morning. She cried when she saw the sliding door. Then she told me something that made everything feel worse. For the past month, the porch light had been off some mornings when she knew she left it on. Her husband thought the switch was faulty. They had joked that the house was saving electricity. They also had a spare key hidden in a fake rock near the garage, but when her husband checked, it was gone. The police never found the man. The phone didn't lead anywhere useful. A neighbor down the block had a camera that caught him walking past the house 2 nights before, at 2:17 a.m., looking into driveways. Another camera caught him standing near Megan's porch earlier that same evening, more than an hour before he knocked. He had been there before I knew he existed. I quit house sitting after that. I also stopped being polite through doors. For a while, every small sound at night made me sit up. A branch, a car door, pipes in the wall. I moved out of my old apartment 2 months later because it had a sliding glass door, and I hated looking at it after dark. The part one still think about is how normal he sounded. He never threatened me. He never screamed. He just kept asking for tiny pieces of access, like each answer would make the next one easier. A locked door is not rude. It is a sentence. It says no, even when your voice shakes. I used to do laundry at a 24-hour place in Reno because it was cheaper after midnight and nobody fought over machines. I was 29 then, working nights at a warehouse and trying to save money after a breakup that had left me with half the rent and all the bills. My apartment building had laundry, but 2 washers were always broken, and one of my neighbors kept leaving wet clothes in the machines for hours. So every other Thursday after my shift, I drove to a laundromat beside a closed check-cashing place and a donut shop that opened at 4. The first strange thing that night was a basket of folded kids' clothes sitting on top of dryer number 17. It wasn't scary by itself. People forgot laundry all the time, but these clothes were folded too neatly. Tiny shirts, socks paired together, a little pink hoodie on top. No basket tag, no receipt, no person nearby. The laundromat was almost empty. There was a college kid asleep in a plastic chair with headphones on, a woman in scrubs loading towels, and the night attendant, Raul, behind the counter watching a soccer match on a small TV. I had seen Raul before. He was quiet, maybe in his 50s, always wearing a gray beanie even inside. I put my clothes into 2 washers and sat with my back to the vending machine. A man came in at 12:38 a.m. I looked at the clock because I was waiting for the wash cycle. He was maybe 40, wearing a clean brown jacket and work boots. Not homeless, not drunk, not loud. He carried a black trash bag over one shoulder. He walked straight to the back wall, past all the empty washers, and stopped at dryer 17. He touched the folded kids' clothes with 2 fingers, like he was checking if they were still there. Then he looked around. His eyes passed over me, the woman in scrubs, the sleeping college kid, and Raul. He didn't pick up the basket. Instead, he opened dryer 18 and put 1 white towel inside from the trash bag. Just 1 towel. He fed quarters into the machine and started it. That was odd, but not enough to make me leave. I was tired. My clothes were already wet. I didn't want to sit in my car in the cold waiting for them. I told myself maybe the towel had spilled something in his trunk, or maybe he worked at a restaurant. He sat down 2 chairs away from me. There were at least 15 empty chairs. He looked at his phone, then at the washers, then at me. After a minute, he said, "Machines run long here?" I said, "About 25 minutes." He nodded. "You come here a lot?" I kept my eyes on my phone. "Sometimes." "You live close?" I gave a small laugh like I hadn't heard him right. "Not really." He didn't smile. "Just asking. My sister used to come here." I said, "Oh." That was all. The woman in scrubs looked over at us, then went back to sorting towels. The man stood up and walked to the vending machine. He bought a bag of chips but didn't open it. Then he went to the front windows and looked outside. His dryer kept spinning with that 1 towel inside, thumping every few seconds. Thump, thump, thump. The sound got annoying fast. I moved my clothes to dryers near the front, even though the back wall dryers were cheaper. Something about him sitting near me made my skin feel tight. I didn't want to bend down with my back to him. He watched me choose the front dryers. Then he said, "Those don't get hot." I said, "They're fine." He said, "The back ones work better." I didn't answer. The college kid woke up, looked around like he forgot where he was, grabbed a duffel bag from under his chair, and left. That made the place feel much larger and emptier. The woman in scrubs had 3 dryers going, but she was near the folding tables by the windows. Raul was still behind the counter, but the soccer match was loud enough that he probably couldn't hear every word. The man's towel stopped drying after 10 minutes. He got up, opened dryer 18, looked inside, and closed it again without taking the towel out. Then he left the laundromat. I watched him through the window. He didn't go to a car. He walked around the corner of the building toward the alley where the dumpsters were. I felt relieved, then embarrassed for feeling relieved. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my ex, Ryan, asking if I still had his tool bag. We had been broken up 3 months, but he still found reasons to contact me. I typed a reply, deleted it, then typed another one. That distraction is probably why I didn't notice the man come back in right away. When I looked up, he was at the back wall again. This time he had the basket of kids' clothes in his hands. He carried it to the folding table closest to the side hallway, the one that led to the bathrooms and the employee door. He set the basket down and started unfolding the clothes. Not checking them, unfolding them. He took the little pink hoodie, shook it once, folded it badly, then unfolded it again. His face was blank. He kept glancing at the front door. The woman in scrubs noticed too. She paused with a towel in her hands. Raoul finally called out, "Sir, are those yours?" The man looked at him and said, "My nieces." Raoul didn't respond, but he kept watching. The man picked up a small sock and held it between his fingers. Then he looked at me. "Do you have kids?" I said, "No." He said, "Good." It was quiet after that except for dryers. I stood up and went to the counter. Raoul muted the TV before I even said anything. I said quietly, "Do you know him?" Raoul looked past me at the man. "No. Something's weird." Raoul nodded once. "Stay up here." He had the kind of calm voice that made me realize he had already been watching. The woman in scrubs brought her basket to the counter too, even though her clothes weren't done. She stood beside me and said, "He's been outside before." Raoul asked, "Tonight?" She said, "No. Last week. I saw him sitting in the alley when I came out." The man at the folding table stopped moving. He had heard enough to know we were talking about him. Raoul said louder, "Sir, you need to take your laundry and go." The man smiled then. Not big, just a polite little smile. "My towel's still wet." Raoul said, "Take it wet." The man looked at the back dryer, then the basket, then at us. He said, "You people get nervous easy." Nobody answered. He walked to dryer 18, opened it, and took out the single white towel. He tucked it under his arm. Then instead of leaving through the front door, he turned toward the side hallway. Raoul stepped out from behind the counter. "Bathroom's closed," he said. The man stopped at the hallway entrance. "Sign says open." I said, "It's closed." The man stood there for a second, then laughed under his breath. He walked back to the front door and left. Raoul locked the front door behind him. That made me more scared, not less. I said, "Can you do that?" He said, "I can if I don't like who's outside." The woman in scrubs, whose name I later learned was Denise, looked through the window. "He's not leaving." The man stood under the light near the donut shop, looking down at his phone. Then he walked out of sight. Raoul told us to stay away from the windows. He grabbed a ring of keys and went toward the side hallway. I said, "Where are you going?" "Back door," he said. He came back almost immediately, and his face had changed. "Both of you come here," he said. He led us behind the counter into the small employee area. From there, we could see a monitor showing 4 security cameras. One faced the front. One faced the machines. One faced the back hallway. One faced the rear door and dumpsters. On the rear camera, the man was standing at the back door. He had one hand over the camera light, trying to see inside through the small rectangular window. Denise whispered, "Oh my God." The back door didn't open to customers. It opened to the alley. The hallway inside led to the bathrooms, storage room, and the door behind the counter. The man knocked once on the back door. Then he held up something to the window. A key. Raoul stared at the monitor. "That's not ours." The man tried the key anyway. It didn't fit. He tried another one. Then another. A key ring. He had a whole key ring. Raoul picked up the phone behind the counter and called the police. He didn't sound dramatic. He just said there was a man trying to enter the business through the rear door and customers were inside. While he talked, the man looked straight at the camera. Then he smiled again. He left the back door and disappeared off the screen. For maybe 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then the front door shook. Hard. The whole glass panel rattled in its frame. Denise gasped. Raoul moved us into the storage room and told us not to come out unless he said so. The storage room smelled like detergent and old cardboard. There was a mop bucket, shelves of cleaning supplies, and a freezer full of ice pops Raoul sold in summer. Denise and I stood shoulder to shoulder, listening. The front door shook again. The man yelled something, but the words were muffled. Then it stopped. I heard Raoul shout, "Go away." A quieter voice answered. Not the man's voice. A woman's voice. "Please," she said. "My baby's clothes are in there." Denise grabbed my wrist. Raoul didn't open the door. He said, "Where's your baby?" The woman said something too soft to hear. Raoul said, "Stand in front of the camera." There was a pause. Then Raoul said, "No, stand in front of the camera." Nobody moved for a few seconds. Then footsteps ran away from the front. Denise whispered, "Was that real?" I didn't know what she meant at first. The woman, the baby, the clothes, all of it. I had no idea what was real. Sirens came closer, but they sounded far away because we were inside the storage room. Raoul told us to stay put. The front door unlocked. People talked. More footsteps. A radio. Then Raoul opened the storage room door and said, "You can come out." 2 officers were inside. The man was gone. The woman was gone too, if there had really been a woman. The basket of kids' clothes was still on the folding table. I expected the police to treat it like a weird customer problem, but they didn't. They asked for our names. They took photos of the basket. One officer checked the bathrooms and hallway. Another went outside with a flashlight. Behind the building, near the dumpsters, they found a gray minivan with stolen plates. It was parked with the sliding side door facing the laundromat's back entrance. There were blankets inside, fast food wrappers, zip ties still in packaging, and a stack of different license plates in the rear well. I didn't see those things myself. Raoul told me later, and the officer confirmed part of it when he came back in to ask more questions. They wouldn't give us every detail, but they did tell us not to walk to our cars alone. The kids' clothes did not belong to anyone who came in that night. The police thought they were being used as a reason to get someone to open a door, or maybe to start a conversation with a woman who looked helpful. That part made me feel sick. I had noticed the basket first and felt bad for whoever forgot it. Raoul pulled the security footage while the officers were there. The cameras showed the man arriving almost 2 hours before I did. He came in, placed the basket on dryer 17 and left. Then he came back twice and looked through the front windows. When I arrived, he was already across the street near the closed check-cashing place. He waited until the college kid was asleep, until Denise was busy, until I had started my machines and couldn't just leave with dry clothes. He had not picked me randomly at 12:38. He had watched the place fill and empty. The footage also showed something I didn't notice. When I moved from my chair to the front dryers, he moved his black trash bag under the folding table by the side hallway. Later, an officer opened it. It had no laundry inside. Just an old jacket, a roll of duct tape, 2 screwdrivers, and a woman's wallet with no cash in it. The ID did not match the woman's voice at the door. They never found the man. At least not while the police were still calling me. Raoul gave them the footage. Denise gave a statement. I gave mine sitting in a plastic chair, while my wet clothes sat in 2 dryers forgotten. Ryan texted me 3 more times that night about his tool bag. I blocked him before I left the laundromat. It had nothing to do with him, not really, but I remember looking at those messages and feeling angry that I had spent months making myself small for people who did not deserve my attention. Raoul walked both of us to our cars after the police left. The sun was almost coming up. The donut shop had turned its lights on, and for some reason that made me want to cry. I didn't go back to that laundromat for almost a year. Now I do laundry on Sunday afternoons at a busy place across town. I sit where I can see both exits. I don't wear headphones. If someone leaves a basket behind, I don't touch it, and I don't feel bad about that. The thing I learned was not that every stranger is dangerous. Most people are just tired and trying to get through the night. But public doesn't always mean safe. Sometimes it only means there are windows for someone to watch you through. By the time I reached exit 214, I had been driving for almost 7 hours and pretending I wasn't too tired to keep going. I was 34, a traveling ultrasound tech from Tulsa, and I had taken a 3-week contract at a clinic in western Kansas because the pay was better than anything close to home. My divorce had been final for 6 months, and I was in that strange part of life where every decision felt like proof I could handle things alone. I booked the cheapest motel I could find. It was called the Prairie Rest Inn, 1 floor, 20 rooms, ice machine out front, office with a bell on the counter. The pictures online made it look plain but clean. I didn't need much. A bed, a shower, a door that locked. When I pulled in, there were only 3 cars in the lot. A white pickup near the office, an older red sedan at the far end, and my gray Corolla under a flickering light. The sky was flat and dark, and the wind pushed loose gravel across the pavement in little scratches. The first strange thing was my key card envelope. The woman at the desk wrote 118 on it, then stopped, crossed it out, and wrote 116. I was too tired to care. She was maybe 60, with dyed black hair and reading glasses on a chain. She said, "Room 116. Ice machine's broken. Check out at 11. I asked if there was a vending machine. She looked at me for a second too long, then said, "Not one you want." I thought that was a joke. I smiled because I didn't know what else to do. Room 116 was halfway down the row. The curtains were drawn. The room smelled like carpet cleaner and old cigarettes. I checked the bathroom, the closet area, and under the bed because I always do that in motels. I'm not paranoid. I've just stayed in enough cheap places to know you check. No one was inside. I put my bag on the chair, plugged in my phone, and took a shower. When I came out, there was a missed call from the front desk. No voicemail. I called back. The woman answered on the second ring. Front desk. "Hi, this is 116. I missed a call." There was a pause. Then she said, "I didn't call you." I looked at the motel phone on the nightstand. The red message light was blinking. I said, "It came from the motel number." Another pause. She said, "Don't answer the room phone." That woke me up more than coffee could have. I said, "Why?" She said, "It acts up." Then she hung up. I stood there in a towel, staring at the motel phone. The message light kept blinking. I got dressed and almost went to the office, but the thought of walking outside in the wind, past all those dark windows, made me stay put. I told myself she was old, the phone system was old, and she didn't want to deal with it. My weakness has always been trying to make things easier for other people. Even when I'm uncomfortable, I try not to be a problem. I didn't want to be the guest who marched in at 11 p.m. over a blinking light. So I unplugged the room phone. The message light went dark. I ate peanut butter crackers from my bag and watched a cooking show with the volume low. Around midnight, a truck pulled into the lot. I heard the tires before I saw headlights sweep across the curtain. The engine idled outside for a long time, not in a parking space, directly in front of my room. I turned off the TV. The headlights went out. The engine kept running. I stood to the side of the curtain and moved it with one finger. A dark SUV sat outside my door. I couldn't see the driver through the windshield. A phone buzzed on the nightstand. Mine. The message was from a number I didn't know. Still awake. I stared at it, trying to understand what I was seeing. Then another text came. "Sorry, wrong number." I didn't reply. Outside, the SUV backed up and moved 2 spaces down, parking in front of room 118. The room I had almost been given. A man got out. He was wearing a ball cap and a light jacket. He walked to 118 and knocked softly. No one answered. He knocked again. Then he looked toward my window. I let the curtain fall. I stood there barefoot on the carpet, holding my phone, and tried to decide what a normal person would do. Call the front desk? Leave? Drive another hour? I was exhausted enough that none of the options felt real. I had work orientation at 8 a.m. The clinic was 30 minutes away. I needed sleep. Then my phone buzzed again. You in 118 or 116. I backed away from the window. There was no way that was a wrong number. I called the front desk from my cell. It rang 8 times. No answer. I tried again. Nothing. The motel phone was unplugged on the table, but I noticed something then that I had missed before. The cord from the phone didn't go into the wall behind the nightstand. It went down through a hole drilled into the floor. That didn't make sense. I got on my knees and looked. The hole was rough around the edges, cut through the carpet and wood. The phone cord disappeared into it, along with a thinner black wire taped to the baseboard. The wire ran behind the bed frame toward the wall that connected my room to 118. I moved the pillow and saw a tiny black dot between the headboard and the wall. At first I thought it was a screw. Then I touched it. It shifted. It was a camera lens, or part of one. Small. Cheap. Pushed through a gap in the wood paneling. I didn't scream. I didn't even make a sound. I just stepped back and felt every bit of tiredness leave my body. The TV was off. The room was silent. Outside, the man knocked on 118 again. Then I heard the door to 118 open. Not from outside. From inside the wall. A soft click. A hinge. A floorboard. I grabbed my backpack and keys. My shoes were by the door, but I didn't put them on. I slid them into the bag because bending down by the window felt too exposed. I looked through the peephole. The SUV was still there. The man was not. I put the chain on the door and opened it 1 inch to see if I could run to my car. The chain stopped the door. So did something else. A hand pushed back from the outside. Not hard. Just enough to tell me someone was standing there. I slammed the door and twisted the deadbolt. A man's voice said, "Ma'am?" It wasn't the man from the SUV. This voice was softer, older. I didn't answer. He said, "Front desk. We need to move you. Plumbing issue." I looked through the peephole. A man in a dark jacket stood outside holding a clipboard. I had not seen him at check-in. He wore no name tag. He kept his face slightly turned away from the peephole, like he knew where it was. I said, "I'm calling the office." He said, "Office sent me." I said, "The woman at the desk?" He paused. Then he said, "Yeah. What's her name?" He didn't answer. Behind the wall, something bumped in room 118. The man outside looked toward it. I stepped away from the door and called 911. The call failed. 1 bar. I moved around the room, holding the phone up. Near the bathroom window, I got 2 bars. I called again. It rang, connected, then cut in and out. I said the motel name, exit number, and room number as fast as I could. The dispatcher asked me to repeat it. I did. Then the call dropped. The man outside knocked harder. "Ma'am, open the door." I looked at the bathroom window. It was small, frosted, and set high in the wall, but it opened outward with a crank. I turned the crank. The window moved 3 inches and stopped because a metal security bar outside blocked it. No exit there. The room had 1 door, 1 window facing the parking lot. A connecting wall to 118 with a hidden camera and wires. Someone outside my door. Someone possibly inside the room next to me. I didn't want to hide. Hiding in a motel room felt like waiting. So I did the only thing I could think of that might pull attention away from me. I set off the smoke alarm. I climbed on the chair, grabbed it from the ceiling, and pressed the test button. It screamed so loud I almost dropped it. I held it down with both thumbs. The man outside yelled, "Hey!" Doors opened down the row. A woman shouted, "What the hell?" A dog started barking from somewhere near the office. I kept pressing the alarm until my fingers hurt. Then I opened my door with the chain still on and screamed, "Help! I need help!" The man outside had stepped back. He looked furious now, but only for a second. As soon as another guest came out of room 112, the man changed his face. He said, "She's confused. We're handling it." The guest from 112 was a big man in sweatpants, maybe a truck driver. He looked from him to me. I said, "I don't know him." The man in the jacket said, "I work here." I yelled, "Ask him the desk woman's name." The truck driver looked at him. "What's her name?" The man didn't answer. From room 118, a door opened fast. The man in the ball cap came out and walked quickly toward the SUV. The truck driver saw him too. He said, "Stay right there." The man in the jacket ran. Not toward the SUV. Toward the side of the building. The truck driver chased him for maybe 10 steps, then stopped because the man disappeared around the corner into the dark. The SUV peeled out of the lot, spraying gravel, with the ball cap man driving. The woman from the front desk came running out in slippers and a coat, holding a phone. She looked scared in a way that made me realize she had not sent anyone. She opened my door with her master key after I shut it and took the chain off. I didn't want to let her in at first, but the truck driver stood in the doorway with me while she looked around. When she saw the wire behind the bed, she covered her mouth. She said, "Not again." I said, "What do you mean again?" She didn't answer. The police arrived about 15 minutes later. Not at the climax, not in time to grab anyone. By then the parking lot was full of guests standing around in coats and pajamas. The smoke alarm was still beeping from where I had thrown it on the bed. The officers searched room 118. It was supposed to be empty. The motel records showed it as out of service because the bathroom ceiling had a leak. But someone had been using it. There was a sleeping bag on the floor, a half-empty fast food cup, cigarette ash in the sink, and a folding chair set against the shared wall. Behind the chair, the paneling had been cut and fitted back loosely. The hidden camera faced my bed. The wire ran through the wall into a small battery pack and an old phone hidden under the sleeping bag. They also found a copy of my reservation printed from the motel's front desk computer. That was the part that made the desk woman start crying. She said the night printer had jammed earlier, and a man had come in asking about rooms while she was fixing it. He said he was waiting for his brother. She stepped into the back office for less than a minute. That must have been when he saw the reservation list, or took a copy, or took a photo. My name, phone number, room change, all of it was right there. The woman admitted she had almost put me in 118, then changed it because she remembered the leak. The officer asked who had access to 118. She said the owner, cleaning staff, maintenance, and sometimes contractors. The man outside my door was not any of them. They checked cameras, but the motel's outside cameras recorded only every few seconds, not steady video. The footage caught the SUV entering the lot, the man in the ball cap walking to 118, and the other man approaching my door with the clipboard. The license plate on the SUV came back to a farm truck reported stolen 2 counties over. The clipboard was found in the gravel behind the building. It had blank paper on it. The hidden camera had not been streaming to the internet, at least not that police told me. It was recording to the old phone. There were clips from my room, but not just of me. There were clips from other rooms too, dated weeks apart. Different angles, different people, some sleeping, some changing clothes. Nothing violent on the clips they described, but it was enough. The motel owner tried to act shocked. Maybe he was. Maybe he wasn't. The desk woman quit the next morning. The truck driver gave a statement and offered to stay until I packed my things. I didn't sleep there. I sat in the lobby of a hospital in the next town until sunrise, then called the clinic and told them I couldn't start that day. I expected them to be irritated. The office manager just said, "Take care of yourself." I cried in my car after that because it was the first normal sentence anyone had said to me in hours. The police called me twice after. They asked about the unknown number that texted me. It had been made through an app and was gone by morning. They asked if I recognized either man. I didn't. They asked if anyone knew my travel schedule. A lot of people did, honestly. My staffing agency, the clinic, my ex-husband, my sister, my neighbor who watched my mail. But the printed reservation was probably enough. I finished the contract, but I stayed at a chain hotel 40 minutes away and spent more than I wanted. Every night, I checked behind the headboard. I checked vents, clocks, smoke alarms, outlets. I still do. I don't care if it looks dramatic. People talk about cheap motels like the danger is dirty sheets or bed bugs or loud neighbors. Sometimes the cost is that nobody knows you, nobody expects you, and the person at the desk is the only thin line between you and whoever is waiting for the wrong door to open. I still travel for work. I still stay alone. But I don't apologize for asking questions anymore. A room is not safe just because you paid for it. It is safe when every way into it belongs only to you.